Hey everyone, Matt Jarbo here with kzomradio.com to give you an update to our Invisible Children Charity Breakdown podcast that we did last week. Now, I know that I made a lot of claims and based a lot of information off of the reports I'd gotten at that time a week ago. I wanted to do a follow-up podcast because some things have changed and some things are a little bit different than how I had originally said. So I did not want to be accused of not giving the right information. So I went through this last weekend, and I did a lot of research, a lot of information gathering. I went through Invisible Children's 2011 tax return with a fine-tooth comb, as well as look up other things that have gone on in the region at the time. And wanted to put together this podcast for you listening at home who are still kind of curious about the Kony movement and what it means, what Invisible Children means. So just, get ready for this. It's going to be interesting. Last time I had said they'd made $13.7 million. That is true. They spent $8.9 million on their programs, like their three-prong system, which was their Central Africa program, awareness products, and awareness merchandise. Those three, not to mention the $1.7 million on the employee, or in $1.07 million on employee fees or in payroll and stuff. So they've done a lot, and their Central Africa program, was 3.3 million or 37.1% of the total funds spent in 2011. Now, here's something interesting. Like I said, they raised $13.7 million, and they spent $8.9 million. That does leave about $4.8 million that has not been allocated. And so in looking through their entire tax return and looking through their expense list and everything, this $4.8 million has disappeared. It's not being accounted for. Now, additionally, they are listed as a 501c3 nonprofit organization. They are an NPO, not the non-governmental organization, or NGO. This is a common misconception. In fact, I see a lot of blogs and websites and people saying that Invisible Children is an NGO, not an NPO. That is just simply not true. They may act like an NGO, but just because they go and they spend money on lobbyists, to get things pushed through, that doesn't mean that they are working as an NGO. So it doesn't work that way. I did find that they have two bank accounts listed on their tax return, one being in the Cayman Islands and one being in the UK. So not that these are like bad things. The Cayman Islands account is generally associated with having money in an offshore account that you don't want people to know about. So there is that. That is one thing. I just came across that. I don't have any more information, but that's just out there for you guys to know about. But if you are interested to finding out more information about where some of this money went, you probably can go talk to Laura Walker, which is one of their employees that handles all that kind of money. Another thing I found was on the tax return, it says their official description that they list on their tax return is Invisible Children uses film, creativity, and social action to end the use of child soldiers and Joseph Kony's rebel war and to restore the LRA-affected communities in Central Africa to peace and prosperity. Now, keep in mind that this is nothing in there about awareness, specifically them using donations and social means to end Kony's war. That's what they specifically say that they do. Now, Director of Ideologies, Jedediah Jenkins, he claims that Invisible Children is not an aid organization. The actual quote is, "I think people think we're over there delivering shoes or food, but we are an advocacy and awareness organization." So that's another thing too, is this organization, this company, it says that they do not provide aid. That is not their primary goal. Their primary goal is awareness, right? So I mean, they spend, $3.3 million on their programs over there. That would be, their legacy school scholarship, their other little, the early warning system, the LRA crisis tracker website, all those things. They spend all that money on, which is obviously providing aid. So when they spend, they spend 37% of their annual budget on aid, and that's actually more than the percentages they spend on awareness products and awareness programs. That kind of makes them an aid organization overall. So them saying that they are not an aid organization, but yet they provide aid, leads me to believe that they are a half in, half out sort of company, that they want to provide assistance, but they want to have that deniability. That's what I take from that. And then, also like going back in, I looked at the finances of, or the salaries of the founders, of Invisible Children and what they made in 2011. Jason Russell made $89,669. Lauren Poole made $84,337. And Ben Kesey made $88,241. All three CEOs put in an average of about 55 hours a week, according to their tax return. And their combined salary was $262,287. Now, there are unpaid directors in the company. Those people are John Bradle, Rich McCullen, Scott Wolf, and Darren Hardy. And they all put in an average of 2 hours a week and are unpaid, according to the tax return. So that's kind of interesting. Additionally, Grant Olson from Visible Children's Tumblr blog was offered by Russell to be flown to both San Diego and Africa to get a first-hand look at the operations. I find that kind of interesting because they're offering to spend, well over $3,000 on flights of their, and this is money of their donated money, to fly a blogger who runs the #1 viewed anti-Kony 2012 blog on the net. Now, granted, he turned it down, saying that he didn't want them to spend the money could be going to use for something else. But that was kind of what he was hinting at, was like, wait, you're going to take, you're going to send me out there. And he didn't get into it, but this is me speculating. He's going to, it's a little bit weird. It's a little bit weird to be, it's like, I've said enough against Invisible Children. Are they going to fly me from Los Angeles to San Diego or to Africa to take a look at their stuff? I mean, it's a spin job. It's an obvious spin job. And then one of the things is that I took this from the video. I was looking at the video last night again, and I took it says that the U.S. government claims that the U.S. Would not get involved in a conflict where our national security or financial interests aren't at stake. That's a direct quote from the video. Yet the LRA Disarmament Act of 2011 is a direct reflection of the 2 billion barrels in oil reserves found in Uganda 5 years ago. This year, in 2012, China is set to start drilling for that oil. In my personal opinion, is that the 100 troops that were sent into Uganda were more to protect our interests with oil rather than capturing a madman who hasn't been in the country in almost 6 years. In the video, it says that Kony, expanded to the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, Central Africa, right? Like, he is in these areas. So, it says that he expanded, or that doesn't mean that his army grew. It's just that he left Uganda. And I've said this before. He left Uganda. That was it. He did not, stake a claim in northern Uganda and then move into these other countries and then take over. No. So them saying that is kind of like, it's misleading. It's underestimating, or it's overstating the facts in this case, when generally they've been understating everything else. They claim in their video that it expires on December 31st, 2012, and that's the expiration date to catch Kony. There was a senator from Oklahoma in their video that says if the interest wanes, they'll pull troops out. I don't believe this is the case. As I said before, the aforementioned oil is more important to U.S. interests than catching a war criminal hiding in other countries. And that's just true. I mean, we're there under the guise of, yes, to protect, to work with the Ugandan military, to train them to go take out Kony. That's why 100, military advisors are there. But this is around the same time they announced that they're going to start drilling for oil. I find that too strong of a connection to be just a coincidence. Not to mention the fact that that Russell and his Invisible Children workers, they paint this picture of Kony, who is just a man who hides in the bush, growing in numbers and getting ready to strike. That's what they keep portraying. In reality, his army is dwindling. He's only got a few hundred left. I think maybe just a little bit north of 600. And he's been hiding in the woods, stealing food from villagers because he doesn't have anything. He's not gaining strength. He's slowly dying. His army is just dwindling. His power reign is over. This is not saying that we should make light of the crimes he has committed. And I'm not saying, this is not something that we should take lightly. Of course, it's something we should take very strongly and push towards. And at no point have any one of us who have been criticizing this video campaign have ever said anything to the contrary. None of us have ever said, let's not get Kony. It's always, Kony is a bad person. We need to stop him. But we're taking a look at the organization that is really pushing it, as we should. And as I've stated before too, the other thing in the video was the April 20th Cover the Night movement. And I just want to point this out to Jason Russell and Ben Kesey and Lauren Poole and Jedediah Jenkins and all the other guys at Invisible Children. That movement is going to get your followers arrested, and I know you don't care. You are asking teenagers, who is your primary demographic, to go out in the middle of the night on every city in America and every city in the world and vandalize, trespass, and most likely break curfew. Now, I know you won't lose sleep at night, but this is not something to take lightly either. These are kids' futures. They're wanting to back your cause, but you are willing to let them hurt their future or hurt their relationship with their parents just because you want, to put Kony in every corner with an image that has him mostly silhouetted against bin Laden and Hitler, which is just weird because you're like, oh, who is Kony? Well, I can't tell what he looks like. I couldn't pick him out of a lineup based upon that image. I've seen enough images of Kony now to pick him out of a lineup, but based upon your marketing campaign, I sure as hell can't. And then let's get into the whole point about Uganda itself. Now, I understand you want to help Uganda. I get that. People want to help Uganda. I used to be in a pen pal program, and I got a lot of letters from Uganda, and I read a lot of the stuff that happened over there too, and it makes you want to help out. But the problem is that Uganda, based upon the current situation, is very, very, very slippery slope depending on who you back. Now, Invisible Children has been backing and donating and supporting financially and vocally the president of Uganda, Yoweri Museveni. Now, Yoweri Museveni is not someone who should be looked at as a saint. This man committed the same kind of atrocities that Kony did. His people did the same thing. They used child soldiers, they mutilated, they raped, they killed, they pillaged, they plundered. They did all those things. You can look it up. In the 80s, when Yoweri Museveni was not even anywhere near the presidency, in fact, he was in exile in Sweden for a while the war was waging here, while the war was waging in Uganda. Then he came back when the previous person had been assassinated by his brother, by Museveni's brother, and then Museveni took presidency. And since then, he displaced 1.7 million people into camps. That is listed on the website for Invisible Children. But again, it's just grossly misrepresented, and it needs to be, they are obviously painting a picture to support their cause, and that is I guess they're right, but it is our job as critics, as responders, to look at the facts and to inform you of the facts of what's going on. It's just, they support the Ugandan government. They give them money. They give them part of the money that you donate. And these people are doing the same things that Kony are doing. They're just supporting the lesser of two evils, perhaps. And given the fact that Kony is now in exile and hiding in the jungle with a small force, maybe they're backing the bigger of two evils at this moment in time, because tides change. That's a thought. And I'd like to kind of summarize this up, because I've spent the last week just completely engrossed in the Invisible Children Kony 2012 movement, and I want to make sure that I have the information and that I've said my piece so then I can move on. And this is what I'm doing. While Invisible Children is open with their financials, I would like to see the personal tax returns of Jason Russell and Ben Kesey to see if they did pay themselves with any bonuses out of the $4.8 million that didn't have any allocation attached to it. I feel that the company may not be evil as previously alluded to, but they are definitely naive with who they are supporting in their mission to bring Kony to justice. visiblechildren.tumblr.com, Grant Olson, he shares my sentiment to see exactly where this money goes. And then I have an open message to the followers of Invisible Children. I understand that you want to help. We as a species are designed to feel that way and help others in need, but to that degree, the Kony 2012 video did its job perfectly. You all want to give money and time, and that is fantastic, but I implore you to please donate to a charity after vetting them completely. If you investigate each charity out there, you will see which ones spend your money the most wisely. Who those charities are not my place to say, but look around and you can make your own informed decision. Do not blindly back one group. That is exactly the problem with the situation. Your hearts are in the right place, but just do your research. And I'd like to leave this with an open message to Jason Russell. I have viewed your documentaries and your video messages to your followers. I understand your desire to help Uganda and to leave the world a better place than when you came into it. I also understand your desire to spread the message to your son. You must remember that you have the eye of the world on you, and your actions will now be the most critiqued. I feel that your organization needs to take a step back and re-atomize your spending habits. I also feel that you should reevaluate how you speak to your benefactors in video messages. You come across as smug, desperate, and reeking of greed. You support Museveni and his UPDF, who have committed the same atrocities on the Ugandan people as Kony. You admit that the money from your program goes to them and they are fighting for peace. You made the same claim about the soldiers whose guns you posed for in a fun and joking photo. Did you know that those troops you said were fighting for peace had raped, pillaged, and murdered, just like the man you're trying to capture? Hypocrisy is a word you should take time to learn. You and your organization are full of it. And in the future, please don't pander your son for attention. You can talk to us like adults, and we'd appreciate it if you did. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Know Your Legends will be back with its regular scheduled programs next week. Thank you. You guys can get more information at kzomradio.com, or you can find us on Twitter at kzomradio or facebook.com/kzomradio. My name is Matt Jarbo. Have a great week. Help Kzom Radio build towards the future. We are currently looking to expand our network and need all the help and support we can get. Please visit kzomradio.com/fundraising for details.